Hey, what's up everyone? So I've put together this video on how to get started with Selenium and Docker. So I will be covering topics such as how to run your Selenium script inside Docker and walk through each Docker commands that we will be using. I will also cover how you can view your tests running inside the VNC viewer, and then from there we will move on to how to set up our Selenium Grid by running individual containers. And we will see how we can use Docker Compose file to quickly spin up those containers with a single command. So I hope you guys are excited. Just as a side note, in this video I will be using Selenium 3 as that's what everyone is familiar with. But if you're interested in learning about Selenium 4, then leave a comment below and I can create videos on that as well. Alright, so before we get started guys, one last thing, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join my mailing list if you haven't already, as I will be doing a race to 5,000 subscribers giveaway, and those that are subscribed to my channel and part of my mailing list will automatically be included in that giveaway. So as part of the giveaway, I will be giving out $50 USD as well as WebDriver IO courses for free once I hit 5,000 subscribers. So you can use the money to buy more courses or get your grandmom a Christmas gift. It's totally your choice. Alright, that's all from my side guys, let's get started.
Hey, how's it going everyone? In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to run your Selenium test with Docker. So let's get started. So first off, let's talk about some of the prerequisites that you need for this video. The very first thing is you need to have some basic familiarity with Docker. Now here, I'm not asking you to be an expert in Docker. All you need to know is what Docker is, how containerization solution works, and how you can run some basic Docker commands. With that being said, I will walk you through each and individual of the Docker commands that we will be running in this video. So as long as you have some really high level familiarity with Docker, you should be okay watching this video. The next one is obviously you need to have Docker installed in your machine. So for that, if you don't have that, you can actually go to this link, which I will add in the description below. So once you have your Docker installed, all you have to do is in your terminal, run docker-v. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm here on my terminal. So here, just simply type in docker-v, and this should print out the Docker version for you. So the version I'm using is 20.10.0. And it doesn't really matter which version you're using. As long as you're able to run this command and you see a Docker version, you should be okay following along with this video. So let's jump back to our slide. Alright, once you have Docker installed, the next thing you need is some kind of Selenium script that you can run to actually test out your Docker solution. So this can be any script. In fact, you can actually install the script that I will be using by going to this GitHub link, which I will also add in the description below. So one thing to keep in mind is that the script can be language agnostic. You can have the script in Java, JavaScript, Python, or any language that you're using for your Selenium script. At the end of the day, what we are trying to show is how you can actually run the script in Docker. So despite which language or which framework you have your script written in, it doesn't really matter. As long as you can run that script in Docker, that's all we care about. So let me show you the script that I have created, which is in this GitHub repository. And then we will talk about how that script is written and what exactly is that script doing. Alright, so I'm here in VS Code, and over here, I have created my Selenium script. Now this is created using JavaScript. If you notice over here at the top, I'm importing the Selenium WebDriver package. And in fact, in my package.json, the only package I have is Selenium WebDriver. So here, all I'm trying to do is do a simple Google search. From there, I'm basically setting up my driver, and I have this google.com. It will go in, search for Automation Bro, and it will get the header at the very first header link that it's going to get, or basically the first result that it's finding. And then it's going to print out that text. It will print out the browser name. It will also print out the browser version. So this is a really simple script that I have created. So let me run the script and just show you how it exactly works. So first off, I'm going to change this to just Chrome driver, and then I'm going to run this test. I'll do node test.js. So here it's spinning up the browser, searching for Automation Bro, gets the first test, and it prints it out. So there you go. It says Automation Bro, 𝐕𝐈𝐃𝐿, YouTube, which is the first result that it finds on Google. It's printing out the Chrome, which is the browser, and it's also printing out the Chrome version, which is 91.0. So this script can be anything if you're using it on your own framework. Maybe let's say you're using some kind of JavaScript framework like WebDriver IO or Cypress, or it can be any framework that you're using. It can also be in any other language such as Java, Ruby, Python. And if you have a script created in that, the idea and the concept will still remain the same. Okay, so let's talk about the main topic here is that why do we need to run our test in Docker? What value actually we are getting out of this? If you remember, I made a small change when I was trying to run our test. This was actually set to Chrome driver version 89. So if we go over to our drivers over here, you can notice I have a Chrome driver, which is the latest version, as well as I have this Chrome driver, which is version 89. If I run this now, let's see what happens. All right, so it tried to open up the Chrome, and then all of a sudden it crashed. Now let's take a look at the error message. So the error message that I'm getting is that the session is not created. And the reason for that is saying the version of Chrome driver only support Chrome version 89. So this is interesting. What exactly happened here? So if you notice, previously when I was trying to run Chrome driver, I was running it on the latest version, which was version 91. So if I go up and I can actually show it to you in my terminal, over here I was running it on version 91. And that's the exact same driver version that I have installed on my actual machine. What that means is if I go to Chrome right now, and over here if I go to my settings and click on help here and do about Google Chrome, the version I have is 91.0.4472. If we go back to our VS Code, this is exactly the same version I have over here. So that means I was using the exact same version that I have installed in my machine. So the driver version and as well as my browser version which I have installed locally matches. But the moment I changed my driver version to 89, it's giving me an error that it does not support the Chrome version 89 anymore. What that means is the browser that is spinning up, which is my version 91 in my local machine, it's saying that that doesn't match the driver version that I'm specifying over here. So it's essentially asking me to change the version and get the latest version installed. So this is the exact same problem that we're trying to resolve with Docker. So how can Docker help with this? Well, essentially, Docker is basically a container, right? So in that container, I can have anything installed. So for example, in that container, I can have my Chrome browser installed with, let's say, version 89, and I can also have a driver version installed with, let's say, again, version 89. And then when I'm going to try to run my test, I will be running tests on the exact same version, which will match my driver version as well as my browser version, so that I do not run into this problem. So with that, every time I'm running my test in that Docker container, I'm always specifying that specific version that I'm trying to run my test in. And in future, whenever I want to update that version, I can manually go in and update my Docker image, and then I can run that test, let's say, with the latest Chrome version, which is Chrome 91, or it can be any new Chrome version that will be out there at that time. Now I know I'm just specifying all of this, but I haven't actually given you a proper example. So let's take a look at how this will work in actual example. So here's the thing, guys. I can directly go ahead and show you the solution with how to run test in Docker. But I want you guys to understand what the problem exactly is over here that we're trying to solve. So here we're not trying to just run test in Docker because Docker is popular and everyone is trying to run test in Docker, or basically everyone is using Docker nowadays. That's why we will use Docker as well. Essentially, we need to understand what our problem is. So the problem that we're trying to resolve over here is that anytime people used to run test in, let's say, a Chrome browser or a Firefox browser, whenever there's a new version update, for example, if Chrome got updated from 89 to 90, when we were trying to run a test in the latest browser, we used to get this kind of error. And this was frustrating for the users, right? Or this was frustrating for the QA engineers, for SDET, for the DevOps team, because they always have to go in and update the Chrome browser or basically update the Chrome driver or basically lock up that Chrome browser so that doesn't get automatically updated. So to solve this problem, Selenium came up with Docker images that can help us resolve these kind of issues. Now let's take a look at how we can actually do that. Okay, so I'm here in Docker Selenium GitHub repository. And if I scroll down, so this is the official Selenium Docker repository, which is maintained by the Selenium team. And if I scroll down, you're going to see there are multiple images included. So all of these images will have different kind of settings. The one that we are looking for right now for this video specifically is the Selenium standalone Chrome. So it's basically a Selenium standalone which has Chrome installed in the machine, and which is what we need right now, right? We need a machine that has Chrome already installed. If I scroll down, they're actually telling me how I can run those images. So here they're giving me this option. So I can do docker run -d and then basically run this command. Now I'm going to explain you this command exactly what's happening here. But first, let me copy this and head over back to our VS Code and take a look at what exactly is happening. Okay, so before we run this, let's take a look at what exactly this command is trying to do. So first off, I'm saying that Docker needs to run this particular image, which is over here. I'm passing in -d flag. That means run this in the detached mode. And then I'm saying use this port. So the first port that you see, which is 4444, is the port of your local machine. And then this another 444 that you see after the colon over here is the port of the Docker itself. So Docker has its own port, and then your machine obviously has its own port. So we are saying, okay, both of the port will remain the same. And then we're passing in -shm-size. Now this one is specific to Selenium standalone Chrome. So the reason this is important is because we are telling Docker that, hey, if you run into some memory issues, you can actually share the host memory, the host being my actual machine, which is my Mac OS over here. So I'm saying, okay, if you have any issues, you can share the memory with my Mac OS. Now, if you don't pass this in, is what will happen is when you will try to run your test in Docker, your Chrome browser will start crashing. Now, we don't want that, right? And it starts crashing because obviously it doesn't have enough memory. That's why we're saying, okay, if you have memory issues, you can share that with my host memory. So this command right here is actually really important. So make sure you put that in over here. And then after that, obviously, I'm passing in the image that I'm trying to run. So here I've specified the exact version. So this is the exact whole version that we are trying to run for my Selenium standalone Chrome image. Let me try to run this and see what happens. Okay, so I just ran this and quickly I got this container ID. Now, in your case, it might be that it's actually trying to pull this image and then you will get this kind of container ID. So it might take a few seconds for that to actually complete. But since I already pulled this image before, I got this really quickly. So if I do docker ps, which is list out all the containers that I have, what it will show me is just one container. So this is the exact same image that we just ran over here. It's telling me, okay, this is the container ID, which is over here. And then it's telling me, okay, I just spinned that up 27 seconds ago. And it's telling me that the port I spinned that up is in 4444. So what that means is I can go in my local machine and I can go to, let's say, localhost 4444, and there you go. I have Selenium standalone version, exactly that, 3.141.59. And if I go to, let's say, Selenium standalone console, I can see right now there are no session running. That means there are no tests running at the moment. Eventually, when I will be running my test or running my script, I can see the new session will get created over here and it will get cleared once the session has actually finished. Okay, so let's head back to VS Code. So we just ran a Docker container and we have our port running on 4444. Now I'm going to have to tell my script that, okay, instead of you have to use this Chrome driver, what you will need to do is actually go to the port 4444. So for that, I will do this over here and I will comment this part out. Now keep in mind that this will be different for your particular framework or your particular language that you're using. In my case over here for JavaScript, I'm going to do dot using server and I will do pass in this actual script. So this is where I'm trying to run it. So I'm doing localhost and then passing in my port and then doing wd hub. And this is important because you need to pass in wd hub so that you're actually trying to run your test over here with port or whatever you have set, which is in my case is 4444. So now let's try to run our test. So I'm going to do the same thing, do node test.js and hit enter. This time you're going to see that it will not spin up any Chrome browser. And also we just got a result as well. So I did Automation Bro, 𝐕𝐈𝐃𝐿, YouTube, and then I got Chrome and as well as the browser that just printed out, the version of that exact browser. Now, if you're still not sure that is actually running it on the Docker container or basically it's running it on that port, let me just show you. So I'm going to do node test.js. Then I'm going to quickly head over to Chrome. Then I will refresh over here. And once I do that, as you can see, it just created a session. And this session is the Chrome driver session that it created over here. And if I refresh right now, since my test has already finished, if I go back to VS Code, as you can see, my test just finished. I will go back to Chrome. And if I refresh, it's going to clean up that session. There you go. It just cleaned up that session. So that means we were actually running our test within our Docker container. And we can see it over here. This is the port that we set up in our Docker container, which is mapping to our local machine. All right, so we just ran our first Selenium test in Docker container. Now, if you're still not sold on exactly the value that we're getting out of running a test in Docker, let me show you another example. So right now we were running a test in Chrome version 91, right? So I'm going to head over to Chrome. And here, this is the Selenium standalone Chrome version that we were using, which is 3.141.59. Now, if I go to the actual Selenium standalone Chrome Docker hub, and if I go to tags, and if I scroll down, I can actually see the same hub image that we were using or the Docker image that I was using, which is going to be somewhere here. There you go, this one, 20210607. And we can compare that over here as well. If I do docker ps, there you go, 20210607. So that's the same image. Now let's see if I don't want to use the latest image. If I want to use an old image, which is going to be, let's say, Chrome driver version 89, for example. I can go to the old one and I can search for another image that I want to use. So for example, if I need to use this image, which is 3.141.59, and it has a slightly different number, if you notice, which is 0422. So let's say if we need to use this one, I can go back to VS Code. If I do docker ps, so here I'm using obviously 0601. I need to change this to use 0422, right? Which is going to be a different version. And I don't know which version that's going to be, but let's take a look at that. So I'm going to do docker stop the container ID. And I'm going to do docker run again, run the whole command, which is over here. And then I will change that one to the one that we copied. Oops, not this one. So let me head back to Chrome. So it's this version. And then simply go back to VS Code, paste it here. All right, so this is 0422 versus using 0607. All right, let me hit enter. Okay, so I already had this image, which is good. Now if I do docker ps, so this is the new image I have. So that's good. So now let me run my test again. So here I will run my test by doing node test.js. Now one thing you need to notice is the Chrome browser version that it will print out. As you can see over here, this time this is 90.0, and this is different compared to the 91 version that we were using before with the latest image that we had. So this is the advantage that we get with Docker. By simply running my test on a different Docker image, I was able to actually get my test running on an older Chrome version. Now here I could find, let's say, an older image and run my test on 89 or 87 or any kind of Chrome version that I want to run. Now, obviously, that is not easy to do with your local machine because you're going to have to keep reinstalling new Chrome browser versions in your actual machine and then try to run your test on that. Here, I can have multiple Docker containers running and I can run my test, let's say one on version 90, another one on version 89, or another one on the latest version. That is all possible without me having to actually install any kind of Chrome browser on my actual physical machine. Another advantage that we have by using Docker is that the session creation error that we had originally when we started the video is not happening anymore. And the reason for that is when we are running a test in Docker container, the Selenium standalone Chrome is ensuring that the driver version I'm using as well as the browser version that I'm using are both same, so that we don't run into this session creation error. Okay, so far we have just been running our test in Chrome browser. Now this can easily be changed. Let's say if I need to run my test in Firefox or if I need to run my test in Opera. Let's take a look at how we can do that. I go over here. Here they're saying this is how you can run the image in Chrome. I can switch that with Firefox as well. I'm going to copy this, go back here, and then paste that. And then one thing I'm going to change is, let's say instead of using port 4444, I'm going to change that to use port 4445. There you go. This is the different port. Now if I do docker ps, as you can see, I'm using two containers. One is for Chrome, which is running on 4444. Another one is running on Firefox, which is 4445. And also I can go to Chrome and I can search over here localhost 4444, which is going to be this Selenium standalone Chrome. And if I do for 4445, which is going to be a different one. So that's great. Now let me run my test. So here I will simply change this to 4445 and then run my test here. So I'm going to do node test.js. Oh, okay. So the error I'm getting is unable to create new service Chrome driver because I did change this to 4445, but I forgot to change the browser, which is Firefox, because here I don't have Chrome, right? I just have Firefox. I'm going to run that. It's trying to run the test. And there you go. It just finished running the test. I got the same header over here, as well as I'm getting the Firefox, which is the browser that I'm running, as well as the Firefox browser version, which is 89.0. So I hope by now you have a clarity on why you should be running your Selenium test on Docker. Not only you can avoid the Chrome driver issues or the session creation issues that you were getting previously when the browser versions were not matching, you can also quickly switch up the browsers that you're using and run your tests in different browsers by simply spinning up a new container. As you can see, I spun up a container for Chrome and I spun up a container for Firefox. Similarly, I can spin up for different versions of Chrome as well as different versions of Firefox as well. And I can be running my tests in all of that together. So I know this video is getting a little bit longer, but in the next video, we're going to take a look at how we can run our test in Docker as well as be able to see the browser spinning up using the help of VNC. And I'm also planning to create a bunch of videos related to Selenium Docker, such as running your test in Selenium with Docker Grid, using it with Docker Compose, or let's say creating a Selenium Grid and running it on AWS. So there are different kind of videos that I'm planning to do. Let me know in the comments below what you're interested in, and I can create a video similar to that topic. All right, so that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, there are a few ways you can support me. The easiest is by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And if you have that means, you can also support me by buying me a coffee or joining my monthly membership on Buy Me a Coffee website. I will add the link for that in the description below. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can debug your test in Docker using the help of VNC Viewer. So let's get started.
So before we jump onto the part on how we can set up VNC Viewer and integrate that with Docker, I think it is important to understand on why do we even need to do that. So originally I was naming the slide View Test in Docker using VNC Viewer. But I was thinking to myself, the point of setting up VNC Viewer is not that I should be able to just view the tests that are running in Docker. The point is that when something fails, I should be able to debug my test. And that is the whole point of actually set up VNC Viewer and integrating that with Docker. So to give you a little bit of background, originally when I was learning on how to set up Docker and how to set up Selenium with Docker, the first time when I was executing my tests inside the Docker container, I could see that my tests were executing and I can see the report being printed out in my terminal. However, I could not actually see what was happening inside the container. So after spending some time on the Google, I finally figured out that I can actually use some Docker images which will help me to see my tests running inside VNC Viewer. So the overall goal of this video is not to just show you that, okay, this is how you can set up VNC Viewer, but also to understand that the reason we are doing that is so that if the tests are failing in your Docker container, you should be able to figure that out by setting up VNC Viewer and integrating that with Docker so that you can easily debug your test. The debug keyword over here is the most important part. All right, so now that that's clear, let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to do to get started. So how can we set up VNC for Docker? Well, the first thing is, obviously, we need to set up a VNC client. So in my case, I'm going to be using real VNC. If I go over here to this link, you can download this for your particular operating system as well. So here, for example, I'm on Mac OS. I can download that. And once it's downloaded, you should be able to open that up. And it will show something like this over here. If you're using Windows, it's going to be same for you as well. All right, let's jump back over to our slide and take a look at the next step. So the next thing that you need is a Selenium debug images. So in the previous video where I explained how you can set up Selenium with Docker, we were using Selenium standalone Chrome as well as Selenium standalone Firefox images. Now before you go further along with this video, if you haven't checked out that video, please make sure to do that. As in that video, I show you how you can set up your Selenium with Docker, and also I explain why it is important for you to do that as well. Like what are the advantages you're going to get when you will be running your Selenium test inside the Docker container. So if you haven't checked out that video, please make sure to do that. I will add the link for that in the description below. All right, so coming back to the slide, the Selenium images that we were using over there was the Selenium standalone Chrome image as well as the Selenium standalone Firefox image. However, if you need to debug your Selenium test, you need to instead use the Selenium debug images. Let me head over to this link and take a look at those images. I'm going to scroll down. In the previous video, these three images we were using, Selenium standalone Chrome, Firefox, and we can also optionally use the Opera one as well. But in this video, we're going to use the Chrome debug, Firefox debug, as well as the Opera debug image instead. So why is that? Because for this particular image, it actually has, as usual, Chrome installed if you're using the Chrome debug, but also it has a VNC server. So that VNC server is what allows us to connect our Docker container with VNC so that we can actually see our tests running inside the VNC viewer. Now that VNC server is tied to a port, which is going to be our next point. So once you have pulled these images, the next thing you need to do is map your external VNC port to the Docker VNC port, which is 5900. Now this 5900 port is already set up for that particular image. So make sure you use this exact port for your Docker container. However, for your external VNC port, you can change it to use something else instead. So you don't have to use 5900, you can use 5901, or you can use 4041, or you can use whatever kind of port that you want to set up for your local machine. All right, these are the only steps that we need to actually set up our VNC with Docker. Now let's go ahead and implement the steps and see our tests running inside VNC Viewer. All right, so previously the way we were running our test was just simply running this command, right? So I'm just going to copy this. And here I'm going to paste this. So we were doing docker run -d for the detach mode. We were passing in our port, which was our local browser port, as well as the port which was inside the Docker container for our Selenium standalone Chrome image. And then we were passing in SHM size equals 2G. This is for so that your actual Docker container can share the host memory. And then we were passing in the actual tag for our image. Now there are a few changes that we're going to do. The very first thing is that we're going to change our image. Instead of using just Chrome, we're going to instead use Chrome debug image. I'm going to change that to debug. And then the next thing we're going to do is tie our VNC port to our Docker container. So here I'm going to do -p again, that is I'm adding in additional port, and I'm going to do 5900 and 5900. If you remember, I said that the port over here, which is this particular part, needs to exactly be 5900 because that is the port which is set up for the Selenium, that is the port which is set up for the VNC server. And this port can be changed to anything. You don't have to use 5900, you can change that to, let's say over here, oops, I keep changing that. So you can change that one to 5901, 5910, or whatever you want to keep it. But for the consistency right now, I'm just going to keep it 5900. All right, so that's pretty much all you need to actually run your test in Docker and be able to see it in the VNC viewer as well. So let me hit enter. All right, since I've already pulled this image previously, it's actually directly giving me this container ID over here. In your case, it might pull the image and then you're going to see this container ID. Now, if I do docker ps to list out all the containers I have running, you can see I just have one container running, which is this one over here, and which is tied to port 4444, which is going to be, if I go over here, localhost 444, and there you go. I can see that over here as well. I can go to console and see there are no active sessions. But another thing, if you're going to notice, is that there's another port, which is 5900, which is set up for our VNC server. So if I need to run my test, how can I see it inside the VNC server? Well, the first thing is we have to open up the VNC client locally. So I'm going to do that by typing VNC viewer, and it's going to open up the VNC viewer over here for me. Now this one, if you notice, it is your local host and then 5900. So that's the port that you're going to set up here. So I'm going to do 127.0.0.1. That's my local host. Then I'm going to do 5900. And I'm going to hit enter here. Once I do that, it's going to ask me for this encryption or unencrypted connection. So I'm just going to say either don't warn me about this again. I can do that and just to continue. And it's going to ask me for a password. And the password is default for all of these images, which is going to be secret. So SECRET. And you can also do remember password so that it doesn't ask you for it the next time. Then I'm going to click OK. Now it's trying to connect. There you go. So it has just opened up that VNC viewer and it was able to connect to that particular port. And the reason it was able to connect to that port is because we have kept that port open in our local machine. For example, if I go back there and instead change this to 5901 and hit enter, it will tell me that the connection was refused by the computer. And the reason for that is there is no open port 5901 in my local machine right now. So I'm going to close that one. 5900 is the one where we are actually running our container. That is good. Now here, what we can do is just run our test the way we were running it previously. Now, once again, if you haven't checked out the previous video, make sure to do that because I'm just following along all the steps that we've set up in our previous video. And then all I'm trying to do over here in this video is to show you how you can run your test in Docker and be able to see those tests running inside the VNC viewer. So the script that we used in our previous video was the one over here, just to give you a quick overview. So this is a simple Google search video. I have set it up to run it on this server, which is 4444. And then I have everything else same. It's going to go to Google, search for Automation Bro, and then print out some content. All right, now let's head back to our VNC viewer. And then I'm going to also open up my terminal. And then I'm going to try to run my test. I'm going to do node test.js to actually run my test.js script. And then I will hit enter. And the moment I do that, just take a look at what will happen over here. There you go. It just spun up a Chrome browser. It's searching for Automation Bro. And all of a sudden, it stopped that. And if I go back over here, I can actually see it printed out the test result. I can see the Automation Bro, 𝐕𝐈𝐃𝐄𝐎, YouTube, which is the first search result that it finds. I can also see the Chrome browser, as well as I can see the actual browser version that it has for that particular image. So that's great. This is exactly how you can run your test inside Docker container, as well as be able to see it running inside the VNC viewer as well. Now, this is extremely helpful because if you're running your test on a particular image, for example, if you're running it on Chrome version 90, if you're maybe running it on Opera, and if you do not have that browser or that version set up in your actual local machine, instead, you can run it in Docker, and then you can see that running over here inside the VNC container, the VNC viewer. This way, you can easily debug your test and figure out what exactly is going on. You can even pause the execution and take a look at what exactly is happening. and then do your typical debugging steps that you would do for any kind of test that you would do it typically for your local machine as well. Now keep in mind, this is not specific to just one particular browser, that is Chrome. I can also set that up for Firefox as well and be able to see the test running inside the Firefox browser. So to give an example, let's take a look at that. So here I'm going to copy this exact command. I'm going to paste it here. Now there are a couple of things I'm going to change. I will change this to Firefox debug because I'm going to run my test on the Firefox browser. Then I'm going to change the port. Now which port I'm going to change? Well, it's the local port that I have on my machine, not the Docker container port. This port right over here is the port inside the Docker container, but the port over here is the port on my local machine. So I'm going to change that to 5901 because that's the port that's used right now, which is available. And the next port that I'm going to change is over here as well, which is again for my local machine. Now the reason for that is I already have my Docker container running on port 444 over here, and then I have another 5900 which is already occupied for this container right here. All right, so couple things we changed. We changed the image, which was from Chrome debug, to change it to Firefox debug. Then we have changed our ports from 5900 to 5901 for my VNC server. Then I've changed my port for my local host as well from 4444 to 4445. All right, now let's hit enter, and then it's going to try to pull up the Firefox image and then spin up our container. So let's do that. In my case, it already had that image, so it started the container really quickly. If I do docker ps once again, not pss, do docker ps. And then over here, I can see the first container, which is this one, which it just spun up, which was for Firefox debug. And the second one is for the Chrome debug. And you notice this is on 4445. This one is 5901. Versus this one is, I'm not going to say it again, this is 4444, and then this one is 5900. But I hope you now understand how this works and how to actually run those containers. If I go to localhost 444, which is the one for my Chrome, but if I go to 4445, this is the one for my Firefox. Both are open right now. Same thing I can do if I go to VNC viewer. Previously, we were getting an error when we were trying to access 5901. I'm going to hit enter. This time, it's not giving me that particular error. It's actually able to connect to that particular port. I'm going to say, okay, don't warn me about this again. I'm going to type in the password, which is secret. I'm going to do remember password and do OK. Now this one, you notice I have it running on 5901, and the one behind that is 5900. Awesome. Now let's try to run a test again. But before I do that, I need to update my test so that I'm pointing it to run it on the new port, as well as to run it on Firefox. So I've changed this to 4445, and I've changed this browser to Firefox. Once again, keep in mind this is going to be different for your particular script that you're using. In my case, I'm using a Selenium WebDriver JavaScript script, where this is how I'm going to actually change it. For your particular case, let's say if you're using Java or Python, you might have to change it the way your framework is exactly set up. All right, so now let's head over here. I'm going to clear everything. And I'm going to run the test again by doing node test.js. I'm going to head back here. There you go. This time it's spinning up Firefox. You can see on the top Firefox. And this was super quick. And there you go. We got our test results as well. Automation Bro, Firefox version 89.0. Perfect. So guys, that's how easy it is to actually run your test inside Docker container and be able to see the test within VNC viewer as well. So this is extremely helpful, guys. Anytime you're trying to run your tests inside Docker container, you definitely should be setting up this Chrome debug images so that locally you can actually see how your tests are being run. You can also debug them whenever something fails and figure out what exactly is going on. So one thing to keep in mind that the node debug images or the standalone Chrome debug images that we are using over here are not what you're going to use for your production as well, or basically for your CI pipeline. For your pipeline, you're going to be using just regular standalone Chrome images because you do not need a VNC server over there. Instead, you only need that when something fails and you need to figure that out locally and to figure out what exactly is happening with your test and debug it over there. So that's it for this video, guys. In the next video, I'm going to be showing you how you can set up Selenium Grid with Docker. So far, we have just been running individual images, but we haven't set up any kind of grid at the moment. But in the next video, we're going to see how we can set up a Selenium Grid so that we can run tests on both Firefox and Chrome at the same time. So it's going to be an exciting video, guys. So make sure to do check that video out as well. Alright, that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next video. Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, I will show you how you can set up Selenium Grid with Docker. So let's get started. The very first thing that we will go over is our prerequisite. You need to have some familiarity with Docker. You also need to have Docker installed in your machine, and then you need a Selenium script which you can execute your test on in Docker. So the test can be language agnostic, it can be in any language as well, it can be in any framework. The script itself doesn't really matter. What matters is how we can actually run that in Docker instead. So these prerequisites, I've already covered it in my previous videos, which was with Selenium with Docker and Selenium with Docker with VNC. If you haven't checked those ones out, make sure you do that, as that's where I actually explained how you can integrate your Selenium tests with Docker, as well as how you can see it in VNC Viewer as well. In this video, I'm going to assume that you have already checked out that video and you already have some basic familiarity with how to set up Selenium with Docker. So now let's move on to our next slide, which is why do you need Selenium Grid? If you notice over here, we have a client, and then we have a Selenium hub, and then we have our nodes. So essentially, the very first advantage we get is that we can run our test on multiple browsers. As you can see over here, multiple versions. We can even have different versions of our browser. So I can have Chrome, let's say version 91. I can have Chrome version 89, which is the older version, right? Similarly, with Firefox and Safari, I can do the same thing. Then I can have it on separate devices. Right now, over here, I haven't actually mentioned, but basically you can run it on, let's say, on your Windows, but you can also run it on, let's say, on your mobile devices. And then you can do the same thing with different operating system as well, like Apple, Windows, or Linux instead. The next advantage you have is, since you're running all of this test in parallel, we are reducing our overall test execution time. So if you would do it one by one, you would have to first run your test, let's say in Apple, you would run it in Chrome, and then you would execute your test again, and then you will run it on, let's say, Edge in Windows. So you're doing this one by one, and your test will take a lot more time. Instead, what we are doing is, with the help of Selenium Hub and setting up our nodes, we are doing this in parallel. So for example, I can have Chrome running in Apple, as well as have Edge running in Windows, both at the same time. So this way, I don't have to wait for one to finish for the other one to start. I can spin up both the browser instances together, which will help me overall reduce my test execution time. And the last one is that it's easier to manage the infrastructure. Since we have set up a Selenium hub and we have connected it with various nodes, it's easier for me to manage this because I can go to my Selenium hub and take a look at all the different browsers and operating systems that are running inside this grid. So this is the advantage that you get with using Selenium Grid. You can run them on multiple browsers, you can reduce your overall test execution time, and in the end, it is easier to maintain this infrastructure as well with the help of Selenium Grid. So now let's talk about how can we actually set up Selenium Grid with Docker. The very first thing that we need to do is set up a grid network to communicate between these images. So this grid network is specific for Docker. So we need to set up a Docker network, and we will name this, let's say, called grid, and then that will help us communicate between the Docker images. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry, we will go over with that in just a few minutes, but I just want to explain what are some of the steps that we will be taking in, and then we will go ahead and actually do it in our terminal instead. All right, so the next thing you need is a Selenium Hub Docker image, and this is where our grid hub will get spin up. So this image, once we actually run that, it will spin up basically allow us to go to, let's say, localhost port 4444 or any port that you have set up, and that's where our Selenium Hub would reside, and that Selenium Hub is essentially the same thing which is over here. Once we have that, the next thing we need to do is set up our images for Chrome and Firefox or any browser that you actually want to run it in. So here I will set up my Chrome and Firefox images. I will connect that, and this is important. I'm going to have to connect that with the same network because I'm saying these are all running within the same network. These are not separate networks or separate test Firefox browser that are running separately totally. Instead, what we are focusing on that they're running under the same network. And then I'm also saying that they are sharing the Selenium Hub host. This last step is actually really important. I have to make sure that it is connecting with the grid. That means it's connected with this grid network. And then I also need to make sure that it's connected with the Selenium Hub host. So once we do that, we will have something like this, where we have a Selenium Hub grid, which is right over here. And then I have my browsers, let's say Chrome over here, as well as Firefox over here. Now, both of these browsers are connecting to the same grid network, as well as they are connecting to the Selenium Hub Docker image.
All right, now let's take a look at how exactly we can do this in terminal. All right, so I'm here on Selenium Docker GitHub repository. I will add the link for that in the description below. So here you can notice this is how we can set up our Selenium Grid hub and nodes. The way we will be doing is using the Docker networking. So with this option, first we need to do is set up a grid as I mentioned in our slide. So we will do that this way by doing Docker network create grid. So actually, let's go ahead and do this one by one as so that you know what exactly we are doing. So here I'm going to execute that. Just make sure I'm under the same directory where I have my test. So this is the directory where I have my test resided. Then I'm going to do Docker network create grid. Once I do that, we got this network ID. And if I do Docker network ls to print out my network, you can notice I have some default networks which are for my for our Docker containers, and then I have one for the grid which we just set up. And if you can notice, the hash ID is same 2493, and it's the same thing over here 2493. So we have set up our grid network. The next thing we're going to do is run our Selenium hub. So we can do it this way. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to copy that. Then I will paste that here. Now, in my previous videos, I've explained how this command works, but I'll quickly give over another overview on how this works. So we are essentially running that Docker image, which is this particular Selenium Hub image here. I'm passing it port 4444, which is the port here for my local machine, and this port is for the Docker container. I'm running it in the detach mode. Then I'm saying that the network, really make sure this is same thing that you will actually put in here. If you have named this grid as your network name, you have to do the same thing over here. So you would do --net, and then you need to name the same thing, which is named your grid. In our case, we named it grid, so we put that over here. And next, we need to give our name to our Selenium Hub image. So we are giving it over here by doing --name and passing Selenium Hub right here. Now, if I hit enter, so right now it's not able to find that image in my local machine. So it's going to pull that. And once it will pull it up, it will give me a Docker container ID. And then we should be able to go ahead and run our localhost 4444, where I should be able to see my Selenium Hub running. So this is completed now. So if I go to, let's say, localhost 4444, you can notice I have a Selenium Grid hub running here. If I go to console, at this moment, I do not have any browser spinning up right here, right? So because at this point, we have our grid, but we do not have any browsers connected to it. So the next thing we need to do is connect our browser to our grid. So in this case, they are doing it for Chrome, they're doing it for Firefox, and then they're doing it for Opera. In my case, I will just do it for Chrome and Firefox, but let's start off with Chrome first. I will copy this, and then I will just paste it here. So to quickly go over, what we are doing is same thing, detach mode. We are right here, it's important, we are saying that the network is grid, that the same under the same network. And then another thing is I'm doing -e for the environment. I'm saying the hub host, which is the host for this particular Docker container, it should be the Selenium hub. And that's the same name that we gave over here for our Docker image. So this is how we are linking all of this stuff together. So we are saying user network grid, and then the hub host, which is the environment variable, should be Selenium hub. This way it knows that it is actually connected to this image right over here. And then I'm passing in the volume, doing dev shm. And this is important because it will allow us to share the host memory, which is, let's say, my own machine right now, Mac OS. And if we don't do that, then we might run into issues where Chrome would just crash inside the Docker container. So this is, again, important to put that right over here. And the next thing is obviously our image name, which is Selenium Node Chrome, which is good enough. I can run this. I will hit enter. Again, it's not able to find it locally. It's going to spin that up. So once this has happened, what will happen is in our grid console, if I hit enter, after this is actually finished, which it is finished now, I'm going to hit enter. And you can notice we have our Chrome WebDriver spinning up right over here. So that's pretty amazing. So what I just did now is I set up my grid network, and then I went in and set up my grid image, which is spinning up under over here, which is Selenium Hub. And once that was done, I connected my Chrome browser to my grid. Right? Originally, it was not there, but now I was able to connect that. Same thing I can do for another one as well, Firefox. Now, just keep in mind, this is optional. I can just keep one browser over here. I don't have to connect to another browser. But the whole point of using Grid is so that you can connect to multiple browsers and devices and so on. All right, so that is done. The next thing is run, let's say, our Firefox image. So I will copy that and paste that here. Everything remains the same. The only thing we have changed is the node. Is good enough, and it's going to try to pull that again, which is fine. I'll come over here, and once I will hit enter here, it will also show up right over here, Firefox image. So yep, this is done.
I will hit enter, and there you go. We have Firefox here as well. Awesome. So we have successfully set up our grid. How can we make sure that this is actually working? Well, that's pretty easy, right? We will run our test and we will see if it will actually run in our Chrome and Firefox browser or not. Okay, so let's do that. So for that, I'm going to have to go to VS Code. So this is my VS Code script that I created in my previous videos, or basically I showed you in my previous videos on what this actually does. So I'll give a quick overview. We are doing a basic Google search. I have selected the browser Firefox. Now, originally we were passing in the server for, let's say for Firefox, I was spinning it up on a separate port. And for Chrome, I was spinning it up on a separate port, right? And that was another issue, right? Because I have to do it on different ports. I could not have it on the same port. And right now with our grid, we just have one port located for this. So that's another advantage we have with grid. And then I'm just doing Google search, trying to search for my name, and then basically printing some stuff related to browser name and browser version. Pretty straightforward. What I will do now is actually copy this, because this one is only running individual browser. What I want it to run is run the test on multiple browser. So I will quickly copy this, paste it here, rename this to, let's say, test parallel, because I can actually run my test in parallel in different browsers. All right, now here I will make some changes to my script. First off, I don't need this anymore. I will get rid of this. And in my server, I'm running it on 4444. So I'm going to keep it there. And for the browser, I'm going to remove this. And then I will change this to, let's say, browser. And in my Google search, I'm just going to pass in browser. So whatever parameter I will pass in will get passed in over here. So if I do Chrome, it will show Chrome. If it's Firefox, and so on. Now, right now, this is an iffy function. What that means is, if you're not familiar with JavaScript, essentially this function is getting executed automatically. So I will get rid of that. And then I don't want to keep it iffy. I want to manually execute this function. So this is fine. And now I will manually execute it by typing in Google search. And as you can notice, it's asking me for a browser. I will say, okay, my first browser is Chrome, which is good. I will copy the whole thing and then say, okay, my next browser is Firefox, right? Because we need to run it on Chrome and Firefox. Cool, so this is done. Our script is ready. I'm going to clear this. And now we will go ahead and execute the script. So I will do node test dash parallel, and then I'm going to hit enter. And just notice once I hit enter, I'm going to head over to Chrome and hit enter here. And take a look at this. Right now, originally it was not grayed out or slightly grayed out. Right now it's saying there's a session that's been executing for Firefox. Similarly, if I hover over here, it should tell me the same thing. There you go. There's a session executed for Chrome as well. What that means is that there are tests that are running in both Chrome as well as in Firefox, because we just spin up the test in our terminal. But if I go over to my terminal now, you can notice here the Chrome test finished. We got Chrome, we got the result of that actual search, and I got the Chrome version, which is great, and it matches the exact same version which is over here. Then the same thing for Firefox 89.0, which also matches to over here as well. So that's pretty awesome. As you can notice, this is still grayed out. The reason being is we have to just simply reload this. If I just reload, there you go, it's idle again. So essentially what's happening is that this node, when we are running a test, the node gets busy, right? Because there's a test running on that. So if I'm trying to, let's say, run multiple tests, the node will have to become idle first before it can run the next test. So to give you an example, let's take a look at over here. Let's copy this and then try to paste it right over here again. Now what I'm doing is I'm spinning up 2 tests of Chrome and 2 tests of Firefox, right? In this case, what will happen is the moment I spin this up and head over here, we just have 1 Chrome and 1 Firefox. But as you notice, this is the key thing. It's saying that there are 2 requests that are waiting for the slot to be free. Because we are saying, okay, once this is finished, we want you to run 2 more tests. Now those 2 tests are, one of them going to run in Chrome, another one is going to run on Firefox. So we are just waiting for those to be finished. So once the test executes over there, and I'm going to head over here. As you can notice, at this point, it already 4 of them finished. But basically, if I hit enter, there you go. Those 2 requests went got removed from here. The Chrome test finished, the Firefox test finished, and all 4 of them are completed here. So I can see Chrome, that completed, then the Firefox got completed, then another Chrome got completed, and then another Firefox got completed. So that's it, guys. This is how you can go ahead and actually set up Selenium Grid with Docker. You can actually update your script similarly where it's pointing into one particular port, which is in our case, that's where our Selenium hub is being pointed to, port 4444. And then we have our Chrome and Firefox running as well. Now, this time when we were running multiple tests, let's say we were running 2 Chrome and 2 Firefox, we had to wait for this particular Chrome node to be actually free. But let's say if we don't want to wait and we have enough infrastructure support where we can actually spin up multiple browsers at the same time. Now, maybe I want to have 2 Chrome browsers here, 2 Firefox browser, maybe 3 Chrome, 3 Firefox, and so on. So how can we actually do that? If I head over here, and if let's see if they will actually show us how that is possible. I'm actually too not sure. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to scroll down. So I actually know what I'm searching for here. So I will do a quick search for, I will search here node max instances. Oh, there you go. It's actually telling me right here. So if I need to increase the number of browser instances or slot, in our case, when we notice it says 2 slots are currently waiting, we can do that by passing it node max instances. I will say, let's say node max instances equal 5. And then I can do the same thing. But another thing they tell us that don't forget to combine the environment variable node max session along with the node max instances. So instances are your browsers and the sessions are the number of sessions that are being run. So we need to do that together. So I will copy this and then I'm going to paste this here. So I'm going to have to kind of stop the existing image. So I will do docker ps. So this is the image that are being run for Firefox and Chrome. I'm going to stop that, docker stop, and stop this image. That's wrong. Docker stop this image. There you go, that's stopped. And I can actually do the same thing for the other one as well for Firefox, which is this port right here. Okay, both of them have been stopped now. If I go to grid, I should not see anything over here once it finished reloading. So I've stopped Chrome as well as I've stopped Firefox. I will clear that. I will do docker ps. The only thing we have running is Selenium Hub. It's taking time for this to load here, which is okay. But now what I will do is spin up the grid again, or not the grid, I will spin up the Chrome and Firefox session again. So here is my Firefox. Now what I will do is add in this node max instances. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come over here and then I can paste this right after the environment right here. I'm going to paste that there. And it says 5 instances. I will change that to, let's say, 3. And same thing here, 3. I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so this is done. If I go over here and if I just reload, okay, there you go. We are seeing 3 Firefox. And the reason we are seeing this one is sometimes you will see this because that's not the idle one. So grid will often show you that we have another one there. But that is okay. That will get removed once we spin up the Chrome one. So let's see if I do the same thing for Chrome. Let's see, Chrome here. And then I'm going to do it right here. Paste this. And then let's say for Chrome, I just want to keep it 2. All right, so the moment I would reload, let's just wait for a little bit. There you go. I can see 2 Chrome and 3 Firefox right over here. So that's pretty cool. Now what we just did is we added extra browser instances and then extra sessions as well because that's required for each instances as well. And I did 3 for Firefox and 2 for Chrome. Now if I run my test, if I head over here, do node test-parallel right here. If I hit enter, and if I hit enter here, you're going to notice we are not seeing that 2 requests are waiting because those 2 requests are being executing right over here for Chrome, for Firefox over there, and for Chrome right over here, right? And you can also notice that one of the node right here is actually free because we are only running 2 tests in Firefox and 2 tests in Chrome. So the third one is actually free right here. And if I enter over here again, you can notice everything basically went, it's back to idle, and that means my test is finished. Oops. That means my test is finished, and I can see 2 Chrome right here and 2 Firefox right here. So this is how, if you need to increase your max instances and max sessions, you can do that as well using Selenium Grid, and basically setting that environment variable in your Docker container when you're spinning up your container. And that way you can actually run multiple tests together. Now, if you're not too sure why you would need to do this, essentially it will help you run your test in multiple browsers. That means it's going to reduce the overall test execution time. So for example, if I have 10 tests and if I'm spinning that up in 5 different browsers together, it's going to be completed faster compared to if I'm running those 10 tests and only running it in 2 different browsers. Now, there are some nuances to that, but I will not get into too much detail over there right now. But basically, the reason we would do this is so that if you have enough infrastructure where you can support multiple browsers, you can actually do that with the help of Selenium Grid and setting up multiple sessions and instances. So that's pretty much it, guys. To quickly review, we set up a grid network that helped us to communicate between our images. Then we set up Selenium Hub, which allowed us to create our grid hub. And then we ran our Chrome and Firefox images, but we made sure that we connect that with the grid network, as well as we made sure that it is connecting with the Selenium Hub host. Once we did that, we also saw, instead of just running it on one Chrome and one Firefox instances, how we can do that in multiple Firefox and Chrome instances as well by passing in that environment variable, which was node max instance and node max session, which allowed us to run it in multiple sessions of Chrome and multiple instances of Firefox. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, there are a few ways you can support me. The easiest is by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And if you have the means, you can support me by buying me a cup of coffee or joining my monthly membership on buymeacoffee.com. The links for that will be in the description below. So that's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can set up Selenium Grid with Docker Compose. So let's get started. So first off, our prerequisite remains the same. So these are the same ones that I have mentioned in my previous Docker videos. If you haven't checked that out, make sure to do that so that you can understand how Docker works with Selenium and how you can set up Selenium Grid with Docker. So I'll quickly go over this. You need to have some basic familiarity with Docker. You obviously need to have Docker installed, and you need a Selenium script which you can use to execute your Docker test on. So now let's take a look at why we need to use Docker Compose. So the main advantage that you get with Docker Compose is that you don't need to remember any Docker commands. Now what that means is, if you remember in our previous video, when we were setting up Docker Grid using this all commands, we had to do this. We had to do Docker network create grid to set up our network. Then we had to set up our Selenium Hub, and then we had to set up our Chrome and Firefox images. And we also had to make sure they are within the same network, they're using the same host. So there was quite a bit of work that went in here. Now this is fine if you're doing it, let's say, once to try to set that up. But let's say if you have multiple team members that are working on some particular project, now every one of them will have to remember these commands, right? And if you make some typo here, some mistakes, your test won't run and your Docker won't actually get spun up. So to avoid all of this, we can use Docker Compose. With Docker Compose, you don't have to remember any of these commands. And with the help of Docker Compose, you can also run multiple Docker containers together. So over here, for example, I can have my Selenium Hub, I can have Node Chrome, I can have Node Firefox, Node Opera, all of them running together within the same network. Now all I have to do is set up one script, which will do all of this work for me, and then everyone can go ahead and execute that script. So essentially, the way you will spin up your Docker Compose is by doing just this command, which is Docker Compose up, and that's it. Inside that Docker Compose file, you can do anything that you want, which you need to do to spin up your Docker containers or images. So in our case, we will be spinning up Grid with multiple browsers using just one single command. And this is a pretty easy command for everyone to remember, right? Compared to using, let's say, this command, which obviously it's much more complicated and you need to remember so many things here, and you may make some typo here versus comparing it with this one right over here. So it's pretty straightforward. You just say Docker Compose up. It will actually point it out to your Docker Compose file. And in your Docker Compose, you can actually set up what you need to do to actually spin up your, let's say, browser or set up your grid. Or maybe if you want to do something else with it, you can do that as well. So now let's take a look at how does this Docker Compose file will look like. All right, so I'm back here in Docker Selenium GitHub repository. And here, this is what we were using. First of all, in our previous video, what we did was we used this Docker networking, right? And these are the same commands that I was showing you just now, which is setting up the network and doing all of this thing. But if you want to use Docker Compose, we can actually scroll down. And this is, as you can read here, it's the simplest way to start your grid with Docker Compose. And for that, let's say we have version 2 here, and I will go to version 3, which is the latest. So this is all you need to do. You need to pretty much copy this file and paste it. And what this will do is set up your Selenium Hub. It will also set up your Chrome and Firefox. And if you want Opera as well, we can set that up as well. And to spin that up, we will just run single command, which is Docker Compose up. So I'm going to copy this and we will walk through what exactly each of these commands are doing. I will copy this. And in my VS Code, this is the test that we were going through, right? Which is test_parallel.js. I created this in my previous video. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure to do that so that you understand what we are doing here. So over here, what I'm going to do is create a new file. And I'm going to name this one. Make sure you name this correctly. So you've got to do this docker-compose.yaml. I'm going to do YAML. And there you go. I've created docker compose YAML file. Now here, I'm going to paste the docker compose commands that we just copied. And I will scroll up. And this is the comment section. I can remove this. We don't need that. All right, so I've pasted everything over here. So far, we have just been running our test in Chrome and Firefox. So I'm going to remove Opera here because we don't need that. But if you want, you can keep that here as well. All right. Now, this is a simple Docker Compose file. Now, this is doing exactly what we were trying to do with our Docker commands, which we were running using the Docker networking. So if you notice, we have, first of all, the Docker Compose version, which is version 3. That's the latest right now. Then we are saying that all of these are our services. So in Docker Compose, you can specify the services, and then you need to give a name for your service. Here, I'm giving it Selenium Hub. Then you have to tell what is the image you're using. It's the same thing that we were doing with our Selenium Hub image that we were using when we were running our Docker command. So I've put that over here. That's my image name. The next one is my container name. So here, the container name get me, let's say, Selenium Hub. The reason this is important is because we will be using this container and container name over here in Chrome and Firefox. And then we have to specify our ports. So obviously, we want it to run on port 4444. So we have specified that as well. And the next is we have to spin up our Chrome browser. So same way, we have to specify our image. Then we have to set up our volume. The reason we are doing this so that we can share, so that we don't run into any memory issues. That's why this is important to do that by setting volume over here. And now we're doing that it depends on Selenium Hub. What that means is if for some reason Selenium Hub cannot start, then these things won't even get started because we are saying this one actually depends on Selenium Hub. So we have added that dependency there. And then we are putting that environment. And this is the same thing that we did with our Docker networking as well. So we are saying hub host equals Selenium Hub, which is the name that we put over here. And then we have provided our port for the hub as well, which is 4444. Now the Firefox one is exactly the same. The only difference is we have changed the actual image. From Node Chrome, we have changed it to Node Firefox. That's pretty much it. Now, if you remember from the previous video, one thing that we did was create a Docker network. Now, if I, let's say, go over here, you can notice we did Docker network create grid. That is something we are not doing over here, right? Here, we have just specified a Selenium Hub, Chrome, Firefox, and that's pretty much it. And we are linking them together. But the reason we are not doing the networking is because in Docker Compose, all of these are within the same network. So we don't have to say that, oh, this network you need to get created, and then you need to link it with Selenium Hub and Chrome and Firefox. Since we're using the same file, the Docker Compose will create one network where all of these services will get started. So that's another advantage we get with using Docker Compose. All right, so our Docker Compose file is ready. Let's try to run this and see how it goes. I'm going to pull up my terminal. In my terminal, I'm already in this directory, which is Selenium Docker test. That's the directory I've created here. And in that directory, under the root file, I have docker compose.yaml. Now to run that, I have to do docker-compose, and I can put up over there. So that's it. All you have to do is put docker compose up and then press enter, and it will go ahead and start up all of the services. So you can notice it's starting up Selenium Hub, Firefox, and Chrome as well. There you go, right? So it says all of this are set up. The node is registered to the hub and ready to use. Perfect. So this was started on port 4444 right over here. So I can actually go here and take a look at how exactly that's working. So let's go here, do localhost 4444. So this is my grid that has just been spun up through Docker Compose. If I go to console, there you go. We just have our grid set up literally with just one command, and we have our WebDriver Chrome as well as WebDriver Firefox both set up right over here. So both our browsers are ready, and we can run our tests, and both of the tests should run up in each of these individual browser. So let's head over to VS Code and try to run our test. So in my test parallel, here I was running my test on Chrome, Firefox, Chrome, Firefox. So I'm running it parallel, so let's do that. So here I will copy this tab, and in fact, I will duplicate this. Now I will try to do node test-parallel.js. The moment I do this, I'm going to hit enter here. There you go. It's saying 2 requests are waiting, and 2 of them are already busy right now. So this one is busy, this one is busy, and we're running test, let's say 4 times here for 2 for each browser. I'm going to hit enter here again. There you go. The 2 slots went away. Now these 2 are busy. And I will hit enter again. It should be fine. There you go. Now it's fine. And if I go to my terminal, you can see it ran in Chrome, Firefox, Chrome, Firefox. So we just ran our test using our Selenium Grid console, which we spun up using Docker Compose. So guys, going back to our Docker Compose file, and I just want to show you the advantages we have by using Docker Compose over running those Docker commands, right? So with Docker commands, you have to remember those commands. People might make typos in those commands, and this is something which is gonna be like a bit more complicated if there are some changes to that particular commands, right? But instead, when you're using Docker Compose, you don't have to worry about any of those commands. So someone who's not even familiar with Docker, you can just give them this command, just do Docker Compose up and then run it. All that will do is set up your grid and every kind of networking and the volume and anything that you're setting up in your environment, everything will get set up and they just have to run one single command. And the best part about this is you can actually push this in your GitHub repository and you will push that up. So people, whoever will clone that repository, they can just run this command Docker Compose up and it will start your grid and they can start running the test right away. So let's move on to our next topic, which is how we can set up parallel execution with Docker Compose. So the first way of doing this is by updating our Docker Compose file. So we have done this in our previous video where we added multiple Node Max instances and Node Max sessions, which allowed us to add multiple Chrome instance or maybe let's say Firefox instance, right? But we did that through our Docker commands when the networking Docker commands we were running it through. Versus over here, what we can do is instead put that same command, which is Node Max instances and Node Max session in our Docker Compose file. That's one way to do this. Another way to do this is we can dynamically increase the nodes by using Docker scale. So we can, let's say, add in more nodes by doing Docker scale, and I will show you both of those commands. And once we do that, you will have something like this. So for the second one, you're going to have, let's say, a grid setup, and you're going to see we have one Chrome here, one Chrome here, one Chrome here, and then 3 Firefox over here as well. Now this is done via Docker scale, and while the other one, Node Max instance, would add it right over here in the same WebDriver. So I'm going to show you both the ways, and you can decide which one works for you best, and I can also tell you which one you can use in whichever scenarios. So let's head back to VS Code and add in Node Max instances. Okay, so in my Docker Compose file, in the Chrome right over here, let's say if I want to increase the sessions and instances for Chrome, I can do this by doing Node Max instances. And then I have to say how many instances, let's say 3 for Node for the Chrome. And I can do the same thing for the sessions as well. And I can say maybe sessions, and the sessions are 3 as well. And for example, let's say for Firefox, we will just leave it as it is. So we're going to keep 1 for Firefox, which is default, and we'll just set it up for 3 for Chrome. Now I'm going to go back here, and then in my Docker Compose, I will stop this. I will do Control-C to stop this, and it's stopping my Docker Compose. And once this is done, what I can do is, again, do Docker Compose up, and press Enter. All right, so our Docker Compose is up now. So I will go back to Google Chrome. And here I'm going to refresh. Now there you go. The moment I refresh, you can notice for Firefox, we just have one instance right over here, which is obviously what we have selected. We kept it default. We didn't add any multiple instances. But for Chrome, we can see that we have 3 instances right over here. That means 3 Chrome sessions and 3 Chrome instances that we have set it up using our Docker Compose file. And you can do the same thing for Firefox as well. You can add in multiple Node Max instances and Node Max session, and you can add that one over here. So for example, by default, if you want to go with 3 on each, you can do that quite easily. Now, if you remember, I've showed you that there are 2 ways of doing this. One is through Docker Compose, and the another way is using the Docker scale command. So let's take a look at how that would work. So here, I'm just going to do again Control-C here to stop this. So the way scale command would work is I can dynamically add more nodes. So let's say by default, you have 3 nodes for Chrome already, right? But you don't want to actually go ahead and update your Docker Compose file. Now, if you don't want to update your Docker Compose file, you just want to dynamically add more nodes. You can do that as well using the Docker Compose scale command. So the way it would work is you would do Docker Compose, and then you do scale. Well, first you would do Docker Compose up, and then you would do -- scale. And then you need to tell which exactly service you want to scale up. In my case, let's say I know Chrome already has 3 sessions. I will do scale up my Firefox. I will do scale Firefox equals 3. And I will hit enter. And then you're going to notice something different this time. All right, so if you can notice here, we have Chrome, which is _1. So we just have one registered hub right over here. But for Firefox, we have two more nodes. We have Firefox 2 and Firefox 3. So obviously we have Firefox 1, but we added two more over here. And this will look a little bit different once I will refresh here. I'm going to hit enter and take a look at this. So we have three Firefox nodes right over here, and then we have one Chrome node where we have three browser instances. So now let's try to run our test and take a look at how this would work this time. I'm going to do the same thing, node test parallel.js, and then here I will hit enter. You can notice it spin up two Firefox. It's telling one of them is free right here, which is fine. I will hit enter. There you go. That one is busy as well. And we essentially have our test running in both Chrome and Firefox. Perfect. If I go back here, you can notice a Chrome session was there. It ran, and then we have our Firefox there as well. So this is how you can use Docker Compose to dynamically add in more sessions, and that's how you can take advantage of parallel test execution. Now this one really depends, let's say how many you want to add in, kind of depends on the infrastructure you're using. So let's say if the machine you're running your test on, maybe that can be a cloud server, if it supports adding, let's say 6 Chrome browsers or 6 Firefox browsers, you can probably do that. But if you feel like that is not working and you might run into, let's say, some test flakiness, then you might probably start off with like 2 Firefox and 2 Chrome and see how that is working, and then slowly you can increase it as long as your machine supports that many browsers and instances. Alright guys, so to quickly sum up, you can use Docker commands to run multiple Docker containers together. You can also, let's say, spin up your grid with multiple browsers using just one individual command. And that's the advantage you have. So anyone in your team members who, let's say, are not familiar with Docker, they can just run this Docker Compose up, and they don't have to worry about what exactly is that Docker file doing or that Docker Compose file doing. They will run this command and it will spin up any kind of services that they want to spin up. In our case, we did it for grid and we spun up multiple browsers. And we also looked at how we can take advantage of parallel execution using the help of Docker Compose, as well as how we can dynamically increase the nodes by doing Docker scale as well. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, do let me know in the comment section below. And please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as that's how I know you guys are really enjoying my content. Also, if you want, you can subscribe to my mailing list, as that's how you will know about all the latest blog posts and videos that I put out each week, as well as the latest content that I'm planning on as well. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I will see you all in the next one.